Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on the new iSTAR Ultra G2 Cyber Hardened Door Controller. My name is Carol Badaro, and I'm the Senior Marketing Communications Manager for Software House. Our expert panelist today is Greg Hollenbeck. He's the Senior Product Manager for Software House Hardware. The new iSTAR Ultra G2 door controller brings security to the next level with advanced access control features, flexible installation, and a rock-solid cyber-hardened core built to help combat the most sophisticated hackers. Just a few housekeeping items before Greg begins the presentation. The webinar is in listen-only mode, so if you have any questions for Greg, he'll be taking them throughout the presentation, so please add them to the GoToWebinar control panel to the right of your screen. And the webinar is being recorded, and the recording, along with the PowerPoint and some other links, will be sent to you after the webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Greg.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to review the Ultra G2 launch today. We'll go through a series of different things that we want to cover. So we'll start with the benefits and the features of the new Ultra G2, which we're really excited about. We'll talk a little bit about TEE, as well as the importance of OSDP. We'll see where the G2 series fits into the portfolio. Many of you know that we've already launched the Edge G2. So this is just another piece of the platform, which is a great add. So we'll talk a little bit about the hardware as well and the architectures, and then Carol will jump back on. We'll talk a little bit about marketing, and then also a little bit about the release and what's coming up and when it's coming out. Just so everybody knows, it is available today. So we launched it yesterday. So you'll see it available on the web, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then it is also open and bond as well. So from our perspective, it's open and ready to go. So really, it's a great piece to the next part of our platform, right? It's a great next add. We designed this with the installation consistency, design instancy, and consistency with the current controller that we have today, Generation 1. And I'll try to keep it conversations, because now we have Ultra Generation 2, and now we have Ultra Generation 1. So I'll try to keep the conversation where I say Gen 1 or I say Gen 2, so that we don't get too confused, because we do talk back and forth between the two. But some of the key features, of course, are we made a lot of hardware changes. Of course, we made firmware changes, and then also software changes to seek here. So the host also got some changes as well. We made we made CPU changes, memory changes, power changes. Those pieces are basically in parallel what we did with the Edge Generation 2. You'll notice that processors are the same, memory's the same, power input and power output are all the same. So there's a lot of consistency between the two platforms, bringing them really closely together. One of the biggest aspects of the new Generation 2 is our cybersecurity updates to meet the needs of both Johnson Controls as well as meeting the needs of all of our customers. So we'll talk a little bit about cybersecurity as well. And I think from an application standpoint, nothing's really changed, right? So Generation 1 met all of these different ideal applications, right? Higher education, finance, healthcare, government, and industrial manufacturing, right? So Gen 2 also meets those same needs. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. I will stop periodically through the presentation and answer questions. I know there's probably a lot of questions, so I'll try to stop periodically. With the new platform, extremely powerful new operating system with the Linux operating system, gives us more power, more security, very flexible controller as we move into the future. And I probably will say it a few times throughout the course of the presentation, the consistency. So consistency meaning the transition or the move from Generation 1 to Generation 2, and the shape, the style, the physical look. Nothing has changed. So generation 1 fits into a generation 2 fits into a generation 1 box, and all of those aspects. So one of the key features for us is the PoE power for a GCM. So this is a PoE board that plugs right onto the GCM. This will be PoE Plus, PoE, PoE Plus, and PoE Plus Plus. This is a perfect installation for wireless lock configurations when you need just a GCM, and as well as an IP ACM configuration. And we'll talk about how that fits into the market, and also how it fits into our portfolio. So our enterprise access control platform, basically it's the 1.2 dual gigahertz processor. It's the IMX7 processor, which is a very high-end processor for a controller. Some of the features, of course, is OSDP. We'll talk a little more about OSDP, but it gives us that functionality. Clustering, of course, intrusion zones, panel-based events, and area controls enhancements in there. The memory allows us to expand memory up to 1 million card holders, and as well as enabling some high assurance features, FIPS 201. So this spare memory gives us the ability to expand into the future. So as we have our roadmap of features that we want to add to our controller, we won't be having to go back and making any hardware changes. The memory allows us to expand our product very easily and simply as we move into the future. So TEE, as you should be familiar with the Edge Generation 2 product, we made some security enhancements, allowing us to, basically, we have a software, so we have the operating system, and then we have an application that runs in parallel with us in the firmware and the operating systems of the hardware, allowing us for a very secure hardware platform, and allowing, preventing hacking, preventing all of these, vital key things, as well as allowing us to have our secure storage of keys and data inside that controller. So by moving to this, it gives us a very, very secure product as we move forward. So TLS 1.3, we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And we'll talk about some of the other key features of the security aspects. With this, basically, our new Edge Generation 2 platform gets a birth certificate. So as we build our product in our manufacturing facility, it is in a secure environment. It gets its secure manufacturing updates right then. And then the two other pieces to that is it runs through its secure aspects every time it boots up. So it's doing its security, and it's checking and doing all its checksum, and it's doing all of that, and then doing that periodically as we have the product, as the product is running. The last piece of that is our secure updates. As all of you know, we do firmware updates. We're constantly doing adds and enhancements to the product, which require firmware updates. And basically, this is saying that the host that is supplying that firmware update to the product, the G2, we have a secure connection between the two, and we're secure between the two components. So you have all three pieces. You get that birth certificate as it's born. You get that continually checking on itself as it boots up and as it's operating. And then anytime we make changes to it, we're constantly making sure that we have secure connections between the 2 points. So this is kind of a good point to ask if there's any questions. So I'll pause just for a second and see if Carol has any questions.
Nope, there are no questions at this point.
Very good. So we'll get into some of the hardware aspects of the panel. So flexibility is probably one of the key things we wanted to bring into the panel. We made some serious enhancements on our power, our configuration, and our networking. From a networking standpoint, we have a dual gigabit network. This is allowing for true network redundancy at the panel. At the same time, we're running TLS 1.3. And as you know from generation 1, we currently are running TLS 1.2 in generation 1 product. From a power standpoint, allowing for 12 or 24 volt power. From generation 1, we were limited to 12 volts. Now we're at 12 to 24. In addition, we also have the PoE option at the GCM. This is a great configuration for IP ACMs and also wireless locks. This is just a small board, and you'll get a picture of it here in a minute, but you'll see that we have a PoE board that is piggybacking on top of the GCM, very similar to the way we do it in the Edge Generation 2 and the original Edge board. So flexibility and configurations, and it really kind of already touched about that. This gives us the flexibility of having a 32-door configuration hardwired, or to have it in a wireless lock configuration. So, and any combination of the two. So 32 doors, some wireless, some hardwired, whatever configuration you want to do to communicate back to the GCM. So I think I skipped the slide. Oop. There we go. Sorry. My rollerball was going the wrong way. From physical, you'll notice that we took off the notch on the bottom. So the new GCM is basically the rectangular shape. We still have the two-line display that you're used to, so that hasn't changed. You're going to see more information that's available on the two-line display, first during boot up and then also during operation. So some key features have been added to the LCD display. We have a new coin battery that's up there in the top left-hand side circled. This is a clock battery, basically. It's designed to support the clock. It's a rechargeable coin battery. You'll also notice supercapacitors on the left. Now, these are really key to the operation of the GCM and the shutdown of the GCM. Many of us had to go through power failures, and the GCM now will hold its power through the supercapacitors, on average 45 seconds to a minute. This allows the operating system to come down nice and clean and to shut down in the proper way. At the same time, it's doing a database backup to the flash and saving all the security things and time-sensitive things in there during that shutdown. So these are really, really key features of that supercapacitor, right? So it's allowing that Linux operating system to shut down nice and clean. We added reverse polarity protection. That's really key, prevent any kind of mistakes on the board. As well as we did a 60-volt protection on the RS-485 ports. And you'll notice that the 485 ports are now full duplex. We, of course, support 4 ACMs. So 4 ACMs are connectable through the USB ports. It was 4 USB ports. You can see them to the left of that bottom circle. So those are kind of the key, some of the key features of the GCM. We'll talk briefly about the ACM as well, and then I'll answer any questions you might have. So the ACM, as well as the GCM, are basically a plug-and-play application for the current GCM and the current ACM. All the holes line up. Everything is in the same location as what it was on the current one. You'll also notice that the retrofit ability, the plug-and-play fit ability, allows us for both current, ultra, and then also allowing for the mercury. And so the GCM kind of looks like Swiss cheese, you might say. It has a lot of mounting holes, and as well as the ACM. So ACM still supports 8 Wiegand, supporting 8 RS-485 ports. Now that's for our RM or OSDP. And then 4 of those locations on the ACM are now full duplex. So we have touchscreen or TST smart mode capability on 4 different locations of the ACM. As far as inputs and outputs, nothing's changed, both wet and dry relays, current sensing as well, and 24 inputs. And expandability, we still have all the same feature sets on the expandability for all of the I/O, so I8s, R8 modules as we move forward. Nothing has changed there as well. So again, another good point, another point to stop and ask and answer any questions. Excuse me.
Yeah, we have some questions that came in. Let's see. The first one is, what is the minimum version for CQ 9000 for support for this, for iSTAR Ultra G2?
Very good question. So 2 different aspects to that, to answer that question. So the Ultra G2 runs in 2 different style modes, right? It runs in the new generation 2 mode, and that is available in version 2.9, Service Pack 3. So full features of the G2 in Service Pack 3 of 2.9. If you want to go and you want to replace an older generation, one with a G2, you can do that and run with existing ACMs, but you're going to be running in Ultra mode, which will bring you all the way back to Secure 2.7. So it is backwards compatible to 2.7.
The next question is it true the G2 supports legacy JCI downstream hardware, RDR8S, RDR2SA, etc.?
So yes, it does, and we're going to get into more detail about that in another presentation. So I kind of pass that off, but the RDR features are available and there to support. Yes.
Is the 12 and 24 volt auto switched, meaning there are no jumpers to select either 12 or 24 volt? Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep. So it's auto seeking or auto sourcing. Yep.
Can you mix and match older legacy ACMs with the new ones?
So yes. So there is a ton of different combinations, and you can probably think of all of them just as easily as I can. But yes, you can. The key thing to remember is when you're running in a mix of configurations, you are running in Ultra mode typically, okay? So you can mix and match them. If you're running, say as an example, you were running a Generation 1 GCM and you had to replace an ACM for some reason, and you put a Generation 2 ACM in there, it's not going to look any different. You can just plug and play, drop it right in. You will not have the feature sets of the Generation 2 functionality because you're running a Generation 1 GCM. So if you want all the full feature sets of a Generation 2, you'd have to run GCM2, ACM2s, but you can intermix them. Yes, you can.
Is the i8 R8 expandable 16 per ACM and 8 per port like the G1?
It is. It's the exact same configuration that we have today on the G1. We did not change anything.
We should probably continue with the presentation and then we can take more questions later.
Okay. So usually I get a lot of conversations about OSDP. OSDP, of course, is supported, been around since 2011. We're currently at version 2.2. That is the version that we support. There are hundreds and hundreds of OSDP readers out there, and my next slide kind of talks a little bit about the functionality of each one of those, not necessarily each one, but this is a communications path, an RS-45 communications path, allowing us to talk to readers, biometric products, I/O modules, and additional control modules. So it is the new standard of the future. So we both are supporting RM and OSDP. at the ACM level. And now, what does OSDP give us? It gives us that interoperability between manufacturers. It's a true open standard. To me, some of the key pieces to that are that security piece and that interactive piece. So the security piece, of course, gives us 128-bit encryption, AES encryption. Of course, the interactive piece gives us the ability to program those LEDs, text messages, those buzzers, all of that interactive piece that are now becoming available in these OSDP readers. Let's just talk readers, but readers, as well as from our perspective, we've made a lot of enhancements on the textual display aspects of it as well. So there's a lot of text information as we move forward, and that's only going to get better. The bandwidth of OSDP is much greater than older types of communication, right? So, and when we talk about expansive, this is just allowing for manufacturers to be more flexible with us. So the OSDP is really important as we move forward. There are some key features coming out with OSDP. Firmware download is probably one of the biggest ones that we get questions about, and where we're going to be with that. That is kind of the next piece to the puzzle, and we're adding that with both host and as well firmware applications moving forward. So you're going to see a lot of changes, or I wouldn't say changes, but enhancements to OSDP on the software house side in the very near future. So I will answer some more questions, because usually I get questions about OSDP and hardware right here, and then we'll kind of go into the platform stuff.
Okay, so with the new powerful hardware components on board, are there any plans on letting the connected readers communicate to the controller via transparent mode, having the keys in the controller instead of having them in the readers as a matter of security?
So that's an enhancement that's been looked at overall. It is definitely in the roadmap. It's something that we're looking at, and there's a lot of control on the reader side too. So it's a kind of a handshaking information with all of the different vendors. So I would say it's on the roadmap, and we're looking at it, and we're working with our vendors. So no time frame just yet.
Are there only 8 outputs on the G2 ACM?
Yes.
Let's see. What firmware version is the new Ultra launching with?
685. That is what you'll get when you get it right out of the chute.
And the last one is G2 configurable via ICU or HTTP only?
Good question. So ICU, for those of you, as we move to generation 2, is basically the configuration piece of ICU is kind of going away. And it's not kind of going away, it is going away. ICU will be used for basically just finding the panels, really, is all it's going to be used for. It's going to locate MAC address and IP address, and that's really all it's going to be used for. After that, we'll be transitioning, but then you kind of transition over to the web application. The web application is awesome. It gives us a configuration page that is very, very detailed, allowing you to configure both networks, allowing you to go in and configure the tool, configure the controller through the tool. It also has another application, and not application, but another page, allowing you to go through the diagnostics of it as well. The web tool is the way of the future for us. It's also more secure. So that is why we're going away from ICU into the web app. So the web app is where we will be moving forward.
And that's all the questions that we have so far.
All right, very good. So portfolio. So here is the portfolio of the iSTAR portfolio, generation 2 across the top. Hopefully all of you are very familiar with the iSTAR Edge generation 2, up to 4 readers. Now this adds to that platform, to the Generation 2 platform, 32 doors. We're still staying with of course, the LT, the SC, and the Ultra, the current Ultra. So this is the portfolio that we have and that we're moving forward with right now. How does that portfolio wrap us together? I think many of you that have seen my presentations or Rick's presentations, you've probably seen this slide in there a lot. We like to talk about, the 3 different levels of controllers, or 3 different areas in where they focus. Of course, the new Generation 2 Ultra focuses on that centralized wiring and that high, that less IT drops, right? It's 32 doors, which brings in higher wire costs because we're running home runs from the panel back to the doors. But it's 1 IT drop, so it's less IT involvement. And then serviceability, of course, and maintenance all done from 1 location. That semi-distributed look, or the semi-distributed configuration you can see is with our Edge Generation 2. It's less points of failure, it's 4 doors, it's ideal for small facilities of small sites. And I think, everybody should be very familiar with the applications of the Edge G2. Now that distributed piece is still available with the IP ACMs. Nothing's changed. Now this is a single point, right? So it's IP to a single door configuration or a 2 entry-exit door configuration. So that IP ACM configuration is out there as well, and that's PoE plus. Now, and then also remember that that's a give and go decision is made at the GCM. So you can see my drawing over on the right, where you still have to have a G2 doing the decisions for you, right? So all those IP ACMs are communicating back to a single GCM for configuration. And what did we launch? So as of yesterday, here are the parts that are available. Those of you that have been buying Ultras for a long time, basically all I did was change the U to a G. The descriptions are identical, so we made the transition from the Generation 1 to the Generation 2. Very simple. All you have to remember is change the U to a G. Part numbers are basically exactly the same. They do have the identifier of the G2 in there, but we are launching the GCM, the ACM, the 2 rack mounts, and then of course the 2 kits. Okay. Those of you that are familiar with the old one, nothing's changed from a CAN configuration at all across the board, except for one thing, and that is the GCM rack mount. Those of you that are familiar with those, remember there was a little notch in the front where the board actually stuck out of the front of the rack. We eliminated that, and we moved some stuff around because we don't have that notch anymore. So you'll notice when you get a new GCM 2U, it'll look slightly different, but other than that, they're identical across the board for the rest of the products. So another good point to stop and answer any questions. If I'm going too fast, sorry.
We've got a couple of questions that came in. What is the max distance the additional ACMs can be placed away from the GCM? Can there be?
Okay, sorry.
Continue. Okay, go ahead. No, answer that, and I'll give you the second part.
So as you know, that we're now supporting up to 4 ACMs. So you are limited to USB length, right? And USB 2 is limited to 12 feet or 3 meters, 4 meters, excuse me. So you're limited to that. You really kind of have to have the cans close to each other, within 12 feet of each other. We are putting together a can kit that will be available, so you can add just a can and two ACMs. It would be in the same can that you're used to seeing in, say, the G-STAR 016, right? It just wouldn't have a GCM in it, but it would look identical, so you would have 2 matching cans side by side. The other option is a PSX or life safety power supply can. pre-wired can. I will be honest, it's very big if you want to put all 4 of them in there. When you add a GCM and 4 ACMs and 4 power supplies in there, the can is big. It's a big can. So what was the other part of the question, Carol?
It was just going into an explanation. It's not an additional question. Can you direct us to contact for requesting demo development units?
So you can come to me for demo product, or we really don't send out a lot of demo units. The sales team, excuse me, has demo units today of the Edge G2. They have a demo pack that they can bring out to you, and you can see all this functionality of the G2s. As far as an ultra demo kit, I am working on something. I haven't really kind of finalized it yet. I'm looking at a small demo unit for a GCM. So that's kind of in the works. But talk to your sales regional, or you can contact me directly and I can see what I can do and work with the sales group.
Let's see. Is the plan to eventually EOL the Ultra G2?
So there is a plan, of course. We're moving and transitioning, yes. The focus is both Ultra and Ultra G2. We don't have a timeline just yet, but as many of you know, components are kind of unique this day and age. So I spend a lot of my time working on components and dealing with that. So I don't necessarily have a time frame, but that is the expectation.
And the last and final question is, in the October price book, the G2 is less expensive than the G1. What makes it so?
That is a great question. I'm trying to incentivize you guys to buy the G2. It's very simple. We didn't want to come out with equal price. We really pushed really hard to come out with a cost effective. Yes, it is the next generation. Yes, it is great hardware. Yes, it is great firmware. Yes, it is enhanced. But we really wanted to give you an opportunity to sell it at a lesser cost.
And that's the last question.
Perfect. Well, I've got a few more slides to go through, and then I'll answer any more questions. But actually, Carol, you have the next slide.
Thank you, Greg. So I'm just going to go through all the collateral and communications that we've developed along with technical docs and where to find them. So we have a data sheet and a new product announcement. The new product announcement goes into a deep dive of the product, features and benefits, a comparison between the G2 and the Generation 1, some frequently asked questions and ordering information. We have a nice white paper called Facing the Evolving Hacker Head-On, and that's been updated to include the iSTAR Ultra G2. It includes the iSTAR Edge G2 as well, so that will be available for you. A press release is being sent out to all of our key security publications, and it'll be hosted on the Software House website. We created a separate website for iSTAR Ultra G2 and a web banner on the landing page. And so on the website, on the web page, you'll be able to access all documents, and there is a nice promotional video that we created for this launch. Doing a full social media push. You may have seen a post yesterday. We're going to be doing some additional follow-up posts along with an email campaign, and then we're going to be participating in some earned and paid media in select security publications in the future. So keep your eyes open for those. On the technical documentation side, we have an MTBF report that is available on request. You can reach out to Greg Hollenbeck. His contact information is going to be on the last slide of this deck. We have A&E specifications, a variety of CAD drawings in different formats, and installation and user guides. And so all of those documentations, as well as the marketing collateral, can be accessed on the Software House website. I added the link to this slide directly to the iSTAR Ultra G2 webpage. Greg?
Excellent. So a lot of key information. Our schedule. So we launched the product yesterday. It's available, ready to go. It is so in the new G2 mode, you will find that you have to use 2.9 Service Pack 3. But if you want to run in Ultra mode in backwards compatibility, you need to be at 2.7 or greater. So that product is the GCM and the ACM. You saw the part numbers that I just gave you. So that is available now. And then available in Q1, so this quarter, our quarter started a couple days ago, will be the Ultra G2 ACM SC. That also is the same version of Secure 2.9 Service Pack 3, and then it'll also run in Ultra mode backwards compatible to 2.7. So with that, you will also see the new PoE++ in Q1 coming out. So that also will be in Q1, and that is also backwards compatible PoE, and that is PoE, PoE+, and PoE++ capable. So quickly, just to recap and talk, we talked about a lot of different things, and some of the key features are definitely our cyber hardening. That is really key to moving into the future. The flexibility of our platform and the power of our platform, the enterprise access control platform and functionality, of course, the rock solid performance with TEE, the flexibility. I can't talk about the flexibility. We really, no panels left behind, the flexibility of transitioning, and even just simple swap outs for a board that just went bad for whatever reason, which never happens. But and then the design consistency, which you're going to see. The design consistency is what I call the generation 2. So the Edge G2 to the Ultra G2, and then the flexibility of those aspects of that too. So I will answer any questions that you might have. We have plenty of time. This is kind of a short presentation. It's not quick and down and dirty, but I'll answer any questions. Here's my contact information. You're best to just reach out to me via cell or via my email address. As many of you know, we're in and out of the office these days, so direct is a little sketchy. So, questions?
Okay. Is there any SDK API documentation available?
So through our partner program, yes, there is, and Kelsey runs a good piece of that. If you have any questions about it, best thing is just email me, and I'll get you connected with the right group and what you want to do from a functionality standpoint there. Yep.
There have been concerns with supply chain lately in most of our enterprise clients and how they pivot. Any information on lead times and if supply is there obtaining these new, if there is supply there obtaining these new boards to spec for future projects?
So the focus, yes, components are a problem across the world, right? We're seeing them everywhere in every different industry. JCI is doing a phenomenal job of managing our component shortages. So yes, you may not see as many parts in physical stock, but they are becoming available, and we are getting them, and we are on top of it. So right now, I'm not seeing any major issues. We're not seeing as much physical stock in the warehouse like we used to 2 years ago. Yes, that's true, but we are building on demand, so build up the demand.
Is there a reason why in Ultra mode the G2 only goes back to version 2.70 of CQ9000?
So there's some host issues, not necessarily issues, but there's some host stuff that is there in some of the older versions and in communicating to this new G2 controller. We are looking at it. I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to see if there are options to go farther back. It is in the works. This was basically we support 2 revs, so that was kind of the theory, right? So we are looking at it. That's really what I can tell you right now. It's on my to-do list to really focus and try to hit on.
Is the device still reliant on board on an onboard SD card?
You know what? I can't believe I didn't say that. There is no SD card on this. This is all MMC memory, so there is no SD card on this.
Is there a requirement for PAM modules for PIV authentication, or does the G2 handle that now?
That one I may have to get back to you on, to be honest. I will take that one as a side note and find out who sent that in and reply to you on that one.
Okay, Greg, I can print out the questions and just provide them to you.
Yeah, just give them to me and I'll just, and I'll follow up with answers to all the questions in email.
Okay. Is there a roadmap for Fed certification RMF/ATO?
There is, I just don't happen to have it in front of me. I apologize for that one too.
Okay, and I think that is all that we have right now.
Okay. Well, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for joining us today. I know there's quite a few of you on the call with us. If you have any additional questions, please email me, email your sales team. And they've gone through all the training on this as well, so hopefully they can answer a good portion of your questions. And if not, then they just hit me up. And those questions, a couple questions that I wasn't able to answer, I will follow up and we'll have answers to them. Carol will give me the questions and I'll follow up with them.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining the call today, and thank you, Greg, for a great presentation. Like I said at the beginning of the webinar, this webinar is recorded, so shortly after this call, I'm going to send out a link to both the webinar recording and the PowerPoint, and I will show you where all of the other documents can be downloaded, the white paper, the data sheet, the new product announcement, and all the manuals and drawings. So thanks again and have a wonderful day.
I appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you.